Hey guys, my name is xOctoManx and this is part 6 of my Chrono Trigger inventory system tutorial series in Unity 5.6, which is once again a Patreon supported tutorial series. So in this part we want to rearrange at first the items a bit, or actually give them some different possibilities. And after this one I want to make sure that we are able to populate our inventory, or at least our UI, with real real inventory options or real inventory items. So let's start at first with rearranging our items. So let's open up the item itself, and what I want to do is I want to make sure that I can differentiate the different item types. So as you remember, we created that item type enum, but it turns out that consumables are not able to be equipable, and same for this one, weapons are equipable but not consumable. And according to this, the usage of the items would be rather different, since this would be in this case would be reduced or removed from the inventory, while this one is equipped to a inventory slot when we are using this one. But we can also return this one back to our inventory, which is not possible, of course, for this one. So depending on how we're gonna use the different types, I believe that could still work, but it might be easier to create a new asset, which is having all that informations like in a different, well, let's say in a different manner. So what I want to do is all of those types, I just want to comment this stuff out, since we don't make use of it for that at the moment. But instead, what I want to do is I want to create a new equipment or consumable script, actually. So what I want to do is I say right click, create new C# script, and this is going to be maybe a consumable, which also means our other types in here might become obsolete, but that's not too bad or not too hard, since we don't have much at that point. If you have more already created, then you might need to recreate them. I believe you have to recreate some of those no matter what. So what we want to do is consumable is going to inherit item. Since item is of type scriptable object, consumable will be as well. So what we don't need is start an update, of course, but what we can now do is we can declare what kind of consumables in total do we have and what kind of effects do we want to use them. Also, what we can say is, I believe we can later on we're gonna delete that list, but what we can do is we can actually create a use function, actually, which is of type virtual. So, or actually the type is going to be void, since we don't return anything, but we're gonna make this one virtual, so we have the possibility to override this one later on. So we say public virtual void, and we call this one use item. So in use item we can actually say what or how we want to use that specific item. So we can currently just debug that thing, but later on we can override this particular function. And since it's a virtual one, we're gonna we're gonna get all the informations later on back from that virtual void. We don't use that yet, but we want to prepare everything to do so. Don't forget to save. And what we can later on again do is, from our new consumable one, we can override the use function, like consume that, remove the item. And that's what we're gonna do in here. Since when we are going to equip something, we don't remove the item, so it's going to be a rather different handling between consumables, equipables, non-consumables, and so on and so forth. And also we can determine what kind of different items we're gonna have in here. Okay, so what we want to do in here is, at first, a consumable is something which can fill up something, like we have a public, or can remove a bad status, for example. So a consumable this is again some kind of blueprinting once again for all consumables we're gonna have. So public, let's say HP amount. and this is going to be of type int. So what we can do is this particular item, which is of type consumable, or this consumable, can heal, for example, health points. We can also say this one could heal MP, so mana points or magic points in that case. So when we drink this one up, or actually when we create this particular consumable, we can set this one to be a heal potion for HP, for MP, for both at the same time. For different effects, we can actually heal, like remove stone effects, or I don't know, something bad actually, or burn effects, or poison effects. This can be all done by consumables, or we can also later on go and create scrolls or any other item type actually we want to do or want to have. What we also want to have, we want to create these items from the menu. So basically we're gonna do the same as we have done in here, just copy the line from the item and put this one into consumable. But in this case the file name is going to be new item, it's okay, but instead of item we want to say new consumable. You can do the same, of course, for equipment. So let's create the equipment one as well. Create new inventory. Now you can see we can create a consumable or an item, but item is actually not needed anymore, because item is basically everything, but not the one we want to create. We don't want to create a plain item, that's what I mean. What we can do is we can create equipment pieces, we can create consumables and so on. So in that case we should be able to, or actually we can later on get rid of the menu inside of item. So we create now a new C# script and we call this one equipment. So equipment can have different types, so we're gonna use an enum inside of that. It can be a sword, it can be a hammer, it can be a armor, it can be everything, or it can have different slots where it has to be in, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna open this one up once again. We get rid of start and update since we don't use this. Also we can paste in whatever we have had beforehand for creating the equipment in this case. And this equipment once again also gets some different pieces. In this case, for example, every equipment can have a damage of type int, of course, and there can also be a public int armor. So this particular case we can determine what this equipment piece is going to be about and how many armor this can have, or how many damage can this particular item deal, or will go onto the stats of our main character. Don't forget to save this one as well. What we also want to do is we want to create a little function which is actually accessing the virtual function in here to use the item to override this one. And that's what we're gonna do in here wherever we like. So we can say, I believe so, public override. And the method we are going to override is actually the use item function. So what this is going to tell is everything inside the use item function is going to be actually performed, but we can also add stuff before we gonna do that or after. For example, if we are consuming an item, we want to make sure that we remove the item we have consumed from the inventory. And of course we want to add the effect, whatever the effect is, or add the HP or MP. Let's say add HP or MP to selected character. And that's what we're gonna use that function for. Depending on who is calling this or how we're gonna call this, which we actually later on go and do directly from our inventory, we're gonna pass in all the data directly inside our base class of type item, and we can override this with an HP or an MP amount. So depending on whatever this thing is all about. We're gonna have to construct the things later on, since I don't have any character in here currently, so I am not able to override something in the character or actually heal the character. So that's what we need to take care of later on. Okay, we can do the same stuff in the equipment one, since the equipment piece is actually doing the same. So we have a public override, and in this case we want to override the items use function as well. So that means our equipment needs to inherit item as well. So now when we are in our override, we can use item. We're gonna do everything what is able to be used in item. For example, a debug line, okay, have used this or have used that item. And in the very bottom, of course, we want to say we want to somehow equip the item, and we want to, of course, remove it temporarily from the inventory. Okay, and that's everything we want to prepare. We can also go in and do all of that stuff according to other types of equipment. So, for example, so we can dig this one deeper and deeper. For example, a sword type is going to be inheriting equipment, which will have the damage or an armor modifier in this case. But we can also do extra things directly to the sword, which is not directly on every equipment, for example. And we can do that once again in any case, in any part. If we want to determine what kind of type those things are, the damage and the armor in this case, is basically the same. We can create those little drop down like an enum. So public enum types, and we can have the several different types of equipment in this case. So it can be, for me, as we already we already talked about, is a weapon, it can be an armor, and it can be an accessory or something. I don't know how this is. Accessory, I don't know, maybe like this. Okay, so we can determine what kind of equipment type this specific one is. And of course, later on we can say who is going to be able to take this. We can maybe later on do that directly in the item type, or we can use that directly in the equipment type. Okay, so and what we also need is the public accessor. I'm gonna do this with a big T in here, and so we say public types and with small letter type. So, and also singular, not plural. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to get rid of sword, since we don't need sword now, since this is of type item, but not, yes, we want to delete that. Same for Azure. Azure is of type item, so we're gonna get rid of this one as well. Same for the potion, we're gonna delete this. What we now can do is we can create new ones of specific types in our inventory of type consumable or equipment. Do not create item. That was just our blueprint or placeholder, so we're gonna switch back all of that stuff. So we can create a consumable. Oh, I forgot to name this. So it's going to be a potion once again. Again, this is of type potion, of type consumable, but it still inherits all the information directly from item. So the name, the item ID, and the icon, and the description, and who is able to use that thing is going to be derived by the item as well at that point. That means we're gonna have our potion. We have maybe the item ID 1, no sprite currently, recovers 10 HP, and we can also pass in the HP amount we want to heal. In this case, the 10 we already talked about. If we have more potions with higher values, we can always go in and create tons and more than tons of particular potions. Same for a sword. In this case, we're gonna create this one pretty quick so you can see the difference now. Equipment, we create a new inventory equipment. So it's deriving, or actually it is of type equipment, deriving item. So we have a sword of fire. Also, I forgot to rename this one in here as well. So sword of fire as well. We're gonna give it an item ID of maybe 2. A description is a fire sword of, I don't know, dragon something. It's going to be usable by, once again, this is still inside item but not equipment, and we can give it now damage, can maybe do 120 damage, has no armor, and we have the type, and we can say this is a type of weapon. So this is a way we can better design all the items and all the types when we have different item types as equipment and as a consumable, and later on also anything else we might go over and need. So since we only have consumables now, maybe we later on have also a non-consumable. We can go and really quick check what we're gonna had in our item in here. So those three are actually combined by one. We're gonna have a consumable, and we might want to go in and have a non-consumable as well, but basically that are all the types now we have combined into two different script types, or actually equipment types, which are inheriting the item class, which are of type scriptable objects. So they are scriptable objects as well. We can create those. We can create consumables, but they have different stats or different modifiers we can make use of. And we can also call the public virtual void function and use or make use of different possibilities using the use item function. Since we are overriding this later on from the particular item types, we're gonna go into the using a bit later on, since we will go into the inventory stuff at first. I hope you understand that. I hope you haven't created too many different scriptable objects already. If so, I'm sorry for this one, but this needs to be done to get stuff or keep stuff more organized, and of course make sure that equipment is not giving us HP or MP. That's why I'm going to split the things up in here. Okay, the usability is going to stay the same. Well, at the moment, maybe we're gonna change this one later on, since we don't need that for consumables, except we're gonna use the all parameter or the none parameter. Okay, so, but for now, we're gonna keep them as they are. Don't forget to save everything you have changed, like the consumable, the equipment, and the item type itself. Don't forget to save this one also. And what you might want to get rid of is the first line in here, which is the create asset menu file name new item, since we don't create any plain items now anymore. Well, at least not at the moment. But still, we're gonna have access to them because we're deriving those classes, or that class. And we can still go in, right click inventory, and as you can see now, item is gone, but consumable and equipment are now left in our list. Okay, so let's go forward and create our list of items we're gonna be able to list inside our user interface, which we already started to create in our inventory user interface or UI script. So open this one up in MonoDevelop and let's get started to fill the list and all its corresponding things. So in the last part we were creating the inventory UI script, where we actually want to have an item holder list, which is holding all our items, or actually creates objects according to whatever is currently in our inventory item list or inventory list. So how can we actually do that? We need to make sure that this one is a static instance, otherwise we are not able to access this permanently. And I believe we're gonna do that for the inventory UI as well later on, since we might need to access the item holder list as well to update it, but otherwise, well, not directly update this one, but call the function which is actually able to update this one. I believe that's what we're gonna start at first. So we make the inventory UI a static class as well, even if there will be, or that will be on the same game object. We don't need to find this through the scene and so on and so forth, so we can have a static instance of that. So we say public static inventory UI, and we're gonna call it instance. No typos. And what we want to do is void awake, which is a mono behavior function you may remember already. We're gonna say instance is going to be equal to this. Later on we're gonna protect this, but for now we just keep it as it is. and we're gonna design a little singleton design parent around that, but not for now. What we want to do is we want to create an extra function, or a private function in this case, and we call this one fill list. You can rename this one to whatever you want, but I want to make sure that the naming convention is not confusing us. So what we want to do is we want to loop through all items in our inventory and create, according to the amount of items inside, the corresponding item holders inside of our spacer game object. And talking of the spacer needs us to create a new public transform of, let's say, our item spacer. We need to pass this one into that as well, since we want to parent the item holder game object. Since that are UI elements, we want to make sure that they are landing inside the correct inside the correct field, so they're gonna get visible at that point. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to loop through our complete inventory. So we say for int I equals 0, while I is smaller than our inventory dot instance dot, and then here we should have our public inventory list dot count. We want to increment I. So we're gonna loop through the complete inventory list in here, and according to how many stuff is inside here, we want to create game objects of type item holder. So we say we're gonna create a new game object. We're gonna call this new item holder, and we say equal to instantiate. So we want to instantiate that particular item holder, which has the item holder. Let me just rename this one to item holder prefab. Copy. So I want to instantiate the item holder prefab, and the transform is going to be the item spacer. And if you want to protect the world space, you're gonna set this one to false, I believe, that, or the local space in this case, so you don't have any oversizing or minimizing at that point. This is only working in, I believe, 5.4 plus. Everything under that needs to do that a bit different. I have older videos about that as well. If you don't, or if you're not sure about that, make sure you let me or leave me a comment. Okay, so now we have access to the new item holder since we instantiated that. What we also want to have access to is the item holder game, the item holder C# script. So we say item holder with a big I, which is this one, which is deriving the mono behavior. We're gonna create a new instance to this one. So I say holder script maybe. That's what we call. And we want to access that by getting it. So it's going to be equal to new item holder dot get component. So we get the component from our item holder prefab we just created. Get component. Open close those triangle brackets and say item holder with a big I, a big H. And open close parentheses after the triangle brackets and close the line with a semicolon. So now we have cached the component of type item holder inside holder script in that variable, and we have the possibility to access that. At that point we are looping through all the inventory pieces, which means we can now pass in all the data which is directly in the inventory item. And we can also access the current amount of the inventory item and its sub-item in this case. So what we want to access in here, let me open the item holder. As you can see, we want to know where is the game object finger point. Well, maybe it's not important for that piece, but what we want to access is the type image, for example. What we also want to know is the name of the item. Oh, there's a little typo in here. I'm gonna make a big T in that. Don't forget to save. And we want to know how many stuff is inside, so we want to pass in the data into all of those 4 fields. Not the finger point. I believe we're gonna use a finger point later on a bit different, since we want to use the finger point just from the navigation side. Maybe we want to catch those finger points somewhere in the inventory UI as well, but that's not the part of this video now. Okay, so what we now want to do is we want to say holder script dot, and now we can enter the amount text dot text is going to be equal to, and now we need to read the data from the inventory we are currently looping through. Maybe we're gonna do that a bit different and use the inventory as an instance directly in here. So we don't need to type in the whole time inventory.instance. I mean, it's working, but maybe we can catch that and make that a bit more reliable. So what we want to do is inventory.instance.inventory list. Then we need to know what's the item we are currently looping through. In this case, it's going to be the item I. Dot, and what we want to call is the current amount. Dot current amount. So we want to read the current amount and pass this one into the amount text.text, which is of type string. So we are gonna, and since this is going to be of type integer, we need to convert this one to string. Open close parentheses after this one and close the line with a semicolon. Once again, we can always go in and catch the inventory instance, which means we create a new inventory. We call this one inventory, like this. What we can also do is after the instance is okay-ish, we can in start, for example. I'm not 1% sure if start is fast enough. Maybe we're gonna pass this later on to awake. In start, we can say inventory is going to be equal to inventory with a big I in this case, dot instance. So we have catched that now directly inside inventory. So what we can do is we can, instead of that inventory.instance, we can just say inventory.inventory list. Same here. We can say instead of inventory.instance, we say inventory.inventory list. So we have catched the complete inventory in one particular part of variable directly in start. So we have direct access to it and make it visible and usable by us, or for us. Okay, so what we also want to know is, of course, or actually our item holder needs to know what is the finger point. Well, no, that's not important, as I already explained, but what we also want to do is what's actually the name of the item. So name of item text.text is going to be equal to, now once again, inventory.inventory list in square brackets I dot, and now we're gonna read the item, and item, whoops, an item has its description, it has the name, it has the ID, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna take the name of the item now, and since it's of type string, we don't need to convert this one. We can do all of that stuff once again. I'm gonna copy this for whatever we have for the image, for example. So item holder dot, then we're gonna have somehow a type image. What we want to set the sprite of that type image, we want to set that from the item dot icon. As you may remember, in our item, we just have the icon in here. We can set this one and make it visible in that little icon in there. Same for ID. We're gonna have the item name in here. What we also want to have is a connection to the description. But the problem is the description directly is not accessible for us, since we are not currently hovering over a specific item. So we don't see the description every time or any time, but we need to take care of that this description field in our inventory is actually visible. So that's what we're gonna create in here, a public, I believe it's text, and I call this one description text field. So we know later on, okay, this description, oh no, not of texture, but text. And if text is not available, we need to make sure that we implement Unity engine.ui. Don't forget to save. And now we can actually populate the list. Maybe when we say, let's say on start, no matter if that is running or not, on start we can fill the list with all game objects according to whatever's in the list and populate all the items we are instantiating and show them inside our inventory. Okay, let's test this one out. Don't forget to save everything if you have made any changes. Let's see if the compiler has any errors or problems for us. What we can do is we can actually populate our inventory list now with, let's say, the 2 items we created, the potion, maybe with an amount of 10, and maybe a sword of fire with an amount of 1. When we now press play and we are calling, go back to inventory UI, and we are calling fill list in start after we have the connection to our inventory, we should be able to see things in our user interface. Later on we go in and also catch all item holders inside the list. Oh, we don't need to, but what we need to do, since we have that already, we need to add the item holder game object now to the item holder list at the very end of that line. So we say item holder list dot add, and what do we want to add? We want to add the new item holder game object. Since it's of type game object, we can easily just implement this in that list. Why do we want to have that? Actually, we want to know later on the positions of all that stuff, and also we can read from that item holder. For example, we can read where is the point where we're gonna be, or where we're gonna navigate through, or until, and so on and so forth. So don't forget to save once again after we have added this one. What we want to do is we want to go to our options canvas, and what we also want to do is we want to put the inventory UI directly on that script. So in here we're gonna have the item holder list. It's currently empty. We're gonna have the item holder prefab, so we drag our prefab item holder directly inside of that. We're gonna have our item spacer, which is sitting in inventory panel, item panel, scroll rect spacer. That's where we want to have all our item slots or our panels inside, and we want to have a connection to the description field, which is in the info panel. There's a text. We can also rename this one to description text, so we later on know, okay, that's it. So once again, go to the options canvas and drag the description text field inside our description. Don't forget to apply the changes to the prefab. So we have everything in here and all is correctly set it up already. If there's anything bold, well, then it is so, but we don't want to have anything like that. When we are now pressing play and checking out what the inventory is going to do, we're gonna navigate to our inventory now, press Y. And what you can see now is we're gonna have the potion, which has 10 amount, and we have the sword of fire with an amount of 1. We have forgot to enter the type, whatever that particular item is going to be about. So that's what we need to take care of as well, so we can later on also organize everything by type. Thanks for watching the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thumb this video up if you like it, and feel free to become my patron or donate by using PayPal to support me and my channel in the future. All links will be below in the description. See you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.